You're watching Scriptease. In today's episode, we're taking an in-depth look at the opening scene of It. This is going to be a very different style of episode for me. Instead of breaking down my thoughts on a screenwriter or screenwriting techniques, I'll be systematically combing through a scene in a screenplay and comparing it with its finished product on the screen. I'll discuss what I think the screenplay got right, what changed from script to screen, and why these changes might have been made. Today I'm looking at the opening scene from the 2017 film It, a supernatural horror film about a group of children who are tormented by a being that embodies their greatest fears, most commonly pictured as Pennywise the dancing clown. Back in episode 1, we talked about using diction, order, and format to create genre, emphasis, and pacing. Using this framework, let's investigate how the opening moments of It's screenplay establishes tone, preparing the audience for the gory, spook-filled ride ahead. Before we even reach the first page of the script, we meet a quote from Pennywise himself. "I'm every nightmare you ever had. I'm your worst dream come true. I'm everything you were ever afraid of." This quote embodies the theme of the film, the different forms that fear can take. It also establishes the antagonist's personality as being somewhat childish, delighting in the fear it instills in its victims. That's if I can use the term personality for an ancient demonic entity. Finally, the quote is repetitive. Each short statement is essentially saying the same thing. It drives home the point. It's a strategy often used in rhetoric to place an idea into the audience's mind. And of course, placing the quote by itself on a page at the top of the script also emphasizes its importance to the reader. We also saw this strategy in the screenplays for The Shawshank Redemption and The Mist, where screenwriter Frank Darabont would open his scripts with similar theme-containing quotes. Then we jump into the story. We open with a downpour outside and a kid looking out into the gloom. Each sentence is short, separated awkwardly. Take just the first line. Rain, lashing a window pane. A piano plays somewhere off screen. Charles Ives Sonata No. 2 for piano. We have two separate thoughts here, so you'd imagine two sentences, like this. Rain lashes at a window pane. Charles Ives Sonata No. 2 for piano plays somewhere off screen. The writers have intentionally made the writing more disjointed, more staccato. Staccato music means that the notes are detached. It's often used to create a sharp feeling rather than the flowing feeling of connected notes. Think of something like the score to Psycho's shower scene. Though of course that's an exaggeration of the concept. Staccato writing, per se, has the same effect. It feels sharper, a little bit more uncomfortable, a little bit more tense. In this case, combined with the harsh rain lashing against the window and the mysterious, almost ominous piano music drifting in from off-screen, the staccato writing has a sinister tone. This structure carries on throughout the opening scene, so keep an eye out for it. In this line, Georgie is introduced by name at the end of the line. A little boy gazes out into the storm. Nervous, eager, sweet. Georgie Denborough. But why bother when something like this would be more natural and shorter? Georgie Denborough gazes out into the storm. Nervous, eager, sweet. Yeah, it loses a little bit of the staccato style, but not much. I think the more important difference here is that the real version emphasizes that Georgie is a child, a little boy. He feels weak, vulnerable, innocent, and therefore lovable. The writers are getting us invested in Georgie, so that when he's in danger, we'll root for him. And in danger is a mild way of putting it. Interestingly, he's also interchangeably called George and Georgie throughout the action text and dialogue headings. It seems sporadic, so it's probably accidental, but certainly Georgie sounds much more cutesy than George, so introducing him as the former once again helps to build our connection. And then of course we get a great horror motif, the dramatically ironic foreboding first line.
Sure you won't get in trouble, Bill?
And it's a 1-2 punch as his brother, the aforementioned Bill, responds.
Don't be a wuss. I'd come with you if I weren't dying.
There's a little bit of brotherly banter, some dialogue that moves the action along, and then we get in giant capital letters a title card. October 1988. When I first got to this, my reaction was surprise. It's so out of place in a screenplay to see different font and larger letters. Admittedly, this may just be how the text is presented in the version of the script that I'm using for this video, but let's assume it's intentional. I think the writers imagined this title card as jumping onto the screen, trying to shock us. The cut to just beforehand certainly supports this case. I think it was meant to be jarring, catching the audience off guard, kind of like in The Shining, where the title cards add to the spiraling craziness. Going more insane as the characters do. In the film, however, the title card is more subtle, fading in and out quickly just to give some context to the viewer. This way certainly fits in better with the haunting piano music, and doesn't break the audience's tension as Georgie approaches the cellar door. The script's title card seems almost like a jump scare, whilst the film's title card is unobtrusive, letting the atmosphere build. Past the piano, Georgie confronts the cellar door, an entrance into the darkness. The cellar is our first taste of fear, an unknowing fear. The writers take this moment to give us an aside that informs us of how Georgie regards the cellar door. The cellar door, the only thing between George and the monster in the basement of his imagination. Of course, this is also a fitting description of Pennywise, again reinforcing the theme of the film. George ventures his arm into the dark void. George snatches his arm back. The dark basement glares at him, taunting. The cellar is personified, it glares and taunts. Once again, we're foreshadowing George's inevitable demise, as the next time he reaches his arm out into the abyss, he won't be seen again. In the film, we even get a moment as George stares at two glints in the darkness, which are revealed to be glass orbs, visually representing this presence that George feels. There's one more little touch in the script which I love. As George searches for the paraffin, he sifts through some junk, including a bag of coloured balloons. Another hint towards Pennywise. Back up in Bill's room, we get another snapshot of light to break up the tension. The cozy room full of cheerful brotherly love. We get a strong sense of how much the boys care for each other, and the way Bill lovingly applies the paraffin to George's ship paints a tableau of warmth and affection. Of course, those evil screenwriters are actually just giving us a lovely moment so that our heart breaks as the rest of the opening unfolds. The description of the street outside is fantastic, consolidating the genre of the film with precise diction and inhabiting the flooded suburban street with a sinister presence. A dead traffic light sways overhead, its black lenses gazing back at a boy in a yellow slicker and red galoshes. George races down the street past dark houses after his paper boat, which sluices along a gutter swollen with rushing rainwater towards an intersection. There's so much to love here. The dead traffic light, although it doesn't appear in the film, tells us that the power is out from the storm, whilst also giving a little bit more fear into the scene. It gazes back at Georgie, once again giving that feeling of being watched. The description of the paper boat is great too. It's described as sluicing along the gutter, not floating or drifting, but sluicing. Sluice is a sharper word. It sounds like slice or slit or slash, giving the action a dangerous feeling. Similarly, the gutter isn't overflowing or brimming, it's swollen, it's urgent, at risk. Rain taps on George's hood, sounding to his ears like rain on a shed roof, a comforting, almost cozy sound. The buckles of his galoshes make a merry jingle as he goes. Under the watchful eye of this sinister presence, Georgie is completely unaware. In his mind, inside the hood, he is comforted by safe thoughts. He feels protected, playing in the street without a care. This section juxtaposes the ominous presence of the past 2 blocks of action text by putting us inside Georgie's mind, out of the rain. Georgie keeps running, hits his head on the sawhorse, then chases after the boat. As the boat reaches the drain, it circles around twice and is swallowed up. Swallowed up being a sadly appropriate term in this situation, as we'll soon come to know. A recurring word in the opening pages of the script is dark or darkness. It usually indicates that place in which fear resides, like with the dark void of the basement. It reappears here. He peers into the storm drain, water falling into darkness, the boat kicking in and out of shadows. Darkness has become a symbol for the recesses of the mind, and as the scene plays out, we'll also learn to accept darkness as the habitat of it. As with the cellar, Georgie once again reaches his arm out. George snakes his arm through the grate, reaching for the boat, his nose pressed against the curb. The commas here drag out the action. The first part establishes the action. The second part, we can imagine his hand moving towards the boat. And the third part, we can imagine him stretching that last little bit of length out of his arm, his fingertips so close. If the line was written something like this instead, George reaches through the grate for his boat, struggling to grab it, then it still conveys the same image, but it loses the pacing. This is a tense moment right before we're first introduced to Pennywise. The writers want the audience to have their eyes glued to the screen, waiting to see what's going to happen to this poor boy. The introduction to Pennywise doesn't come so abruptly though. Instead of grabbing at Georgie's arm, he fades into existence, both in the script and film. A face appears, a greasy white face. George recoils from the storm drain, spooked. That's when a voice, a sad voice, rises up. It's less shocking and more creepy. He's not scared or frightened, he's spooked. It's almost goofy sounding, which is perfect for the sight he's greeted with next. Deep inside there, lingering just on the edge of the shadows, is a clown. Not Bozo or Ronald McDonald, but something more old world, freakish, like that of a 19th century acrobat. Bold, lithe, almost childlike. Pennywise. We get a lot of description for Pennywise, and understandably, he's the standout character. He's unique and never seen before, so we want the reader to have a good picture of him in their mind. Is a clown is given its own line to drive home how weird it is to see a clown in a storm drain. It's not the kind of detail you want the reader to skim over. Not only would they be very confused later on, but they'd also miss out on a striking image that should get them invested in the story. Any comforting image of a clown the reader might have is then stripped away with a series of descriptors. Old World not only refers to the antiquity of Pennywise's outfit, but also the fact that Pennywise is an ancient, eldritch being. Freakish evokes imagery of a freak show at a carnival, and taken with the 19th century acrobat, the writers keep their words related to the circus. Bald and lithe give us a better physical image of Pennywise, and finally childlike tells us something about his demeanor. It's a full yet succinct description of the character, a brilliant jumping off point for any actor wanting to play Pennywise. We then launch into some dialogue between Georgie and Pennywise. What's interesting here is that the dialogue in the script is almost entirely different to the dialogue in the film. The basic idea is the same. Pennywise tries to convince Georgie to reach into the storm drain, but the execution is vastly different in how it characterizes both Georgie and Pennywise. Let's start with the script. Script Georgie is very suspicious of Pennywise, as well he should be, and often deflects his questions or refuses his requests. He questions what Pennywise is doing in the sewer straight away. He shuts down the idea that his brother would like the circus, and even up until the final moment, Georgie seems to know better than to talk to strangers. Script Pennywise is relentless, constantly tempting Georgie towards the storm drain with a lack of subtlety. Every roadblock Georgie puts up, Pennywise has a way around it. He invites Georgie to the circus. He drops the idea of Bill joining them when Georgie resists, and then he uses the boat as leverage to get Georgie to reach out. The scene certainly has drama in it. One character wants something, the other character is denying it. But it's a little too on the nose. At the end of the scene, despite Georgie still being highly suspicious of Pennywise, he reaches out for the boat anyway. It feels too easy. Pennywise hasn't earned Georgie's trust to that degree. I actually prefer how the film presents the characters in this scene more than I do in the script. Film Georgie is more guileless. Yes, he's suspicious, but he's more receptive to Pennywise's charms. Film Pennywise is more cunning. Instead of always directly asking for what he wants, he tries harder to entice Georgie with the fantasy of the circus. Both characters have moved towards the middle, making the gap they have to bridge far easier, but without compromising the common sense of the situation. This is best shown in this segment, which is completely absent from the script.
What are you doing in the sewer?
Oh, storm blew me away. Blew the whole circus away. Can you smell the circus, Georgie? There's peanuts, cotton candy, hot dogs, and...
Popcorn?
popcorn! Is that your favorite?
Uh-huh.
Mine too! Because they pop. Pop, 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 pop. Pop, pop, pop.
Pennywise creates a fantasy, and Georgie buys into it, bringing Pennywise closer to his goal. Then he gets carried away, his gluttony getting the better of him as he drools over the idea of popcorn. He then uses one more tool to bring Georgie back to him. He makes him worry that if he doesn't bring the boat back, Bill will be mad at him. Or as he puts it,
Bill's gonna kill you.
now Georgie reaches for the boat, which makes far more sense than in the script version, where Georgie reached for the boat as a sign of friendship. Of course, the result here is the same. Georgie gives in and gets his arm bitten off. But at least he's getting a yank. Georgie is pulled back into the blackness of the storm drain. The darkness motif reoccurs here, but I want to focus on the way the writers carve false hope into this sequence. This punctuation where away is shortened, interrupted like a line of dialogue, and then followed by an exclamation, yank, is almost cartoonish. It's exaggerated, it's odd to see in action text, but it gets the point across. We understand how this plays out visually, that we're praying for the kid to get away before the cruel reality of the situation unfolds. In the film, this effect is achieved even more brilliantly, with the top-down shot of Pennywise's arm creeping out from the storm drain, but I love the script's version nonetheless. And then, in the final line of the scene, which has swallowed Georgie Denborough whole, we get a callback to when the ship was swallowed, now with the added context of Pennywise quite literally eating Georgie. I love this scene for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, it has great conveyance. I can see and hear the film in my mind, as the script mentions the lighting and the weather and the music. And all of this is delivered in a beautiful package. The staccato writing, the repeating darkness motif, the diction which mixes dark and playful language to create a gruesome, twisted, despairing reality. I can almost hear creepy carnival music just from the text, that slowed down minor key rendition of Entry of the Gladiators. Basically what I'm saying is, it has great tone. The genre is clear not only from the events taking place, but in the very way they're written. And most importantly, it achieves the #1 goal of the opening scene of a movie. It crafts the story world and pulls the reader into it. And that's what I want every script to do. Good writing and good luck.